My name is A.M., and I don't expect anyone to believe what happened to me. I barely believe it myself. All I can say is I hope that by sharing this, someone else might avoid the same mistake I made, ignoring the warning signs of a place that doesn't want you there. I moved into that apartment because rent was cheap and the location was close to my new job. It was a small one-bedroom on the third floor of an old brick building in Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place that still had brass mailboxes in the lobby and water stains hiding under a fresh coat of paint. It felt like the landlord was doing just enough to keep the building from collapsing. The apartment seemed fine at first. Clean floors, a window with a partial river view if I leaned out a bit. Then I saw the door. It was in the living room, on the wall opposite the couch, narrower than a normal door, almost like a closet, but without a handle. Just a keyhole. And it was painted the exact same color as the wall, like someone had tried to camouflage it. I asked the landlord before signing the lease, "What's this door?" He didn't even look at it when he answered. "Sealed maintenance access, completely shut, nothing to worry about." I should have noticed the way he rushed through that explanation, but I was exhausted from job hunting and desperate to move out of my friend's basement, so I signed. The first couple of nights I slept like a rock, but by the end of the week I started waking up around 3 in the morning. Always around the same time, always with the same strange feeling, like the air was colder, stiller, thicker. At first I told myself it was just stress. Then came the sound, a soft, metallic tick, like someone gently trying a lock. I sat up in bed, listening hard, but the apartment was silent again within seconds. The next night, it happened again. Quiet but deliberate, the sound of a lock being tested. The noise came from the narrow door. I told myself it was building pipes. Old buildings make sounds, right? 2 days later, I came home from work and found something odd. The small throw blanket I kept draped over the couch had been pulled partially under the narrow door, just the edge of it, almost like something on the other side had managed to grab a corner and tug it through. I stood there staring at that blanket for what felt like a full minute. My brain fought against the obvious conclusion. I wanted to believe I had kicked it in my sleep, or that it slid during the night. So I pushed the couch closer to the door, not enough to block it entirely, but enough to feel like a barrier. That night, something woke me up abruptly. It wasn't a sound this time, it was motion. A scraping, dragging, like heavy furniture being pushed across the floor.
I got up, and my heart nearly stopped. The couch, which had been firmly in place, was sitting a full foot away from the wall. From the door. Something had pushed it from the other side. I grabbed my keys, shoes, and phone and left the apartment. Didn't even turn off the lights. I sat in my car until sunrise, convincing myself I was losing it. Lack of sleep, anxiety, that's all. The next morning, I called the landlord. I told him the couch had moved and the blanket had been yanked. His reaction didn't help my nerves. He went quiet. too quiet. Then he said, "Don't touch that door." I demanded to know what was behind it. He muttered something about the building being old, having sealed spaces, and that sometimes air pressure did weird things. I told him air pressure doesn't try to unlock doors at 3 a.m. He said he would stop by later to inspect it. He didn't come. So I bought a pry bar. If he wasn't going to open the door, I would. I wedged the bar between the frame and the door and started forcing it. The wood creaked. The paint started to crack. I felt the lock strain. And then, a knock from the other side. One knock. Not loud, not angry. Just aware. I dropped the pry bar and froze. My ears rang with silence. I stepped back slowly and went into my bedroom, closing the door behind me, trying to pretend it was all in my head. When I finally worked up the courage to look again later, the door was unchanged, except the keyhole was gone. Someone, or something, had filled it, smoothly, seamlessly. Fresh paint. I would have smelled the paint, heard someone, but I didn't. I slept at a coworker's apartment that night. When I came back the next day, I noticed something else. The couch was against the wall again, perfectly aligned, too perfect, as if someone had measured the distance. I tried to act normal, made dinner, watched TV with the volume too loud. It helped me feel less alone. Then, as I lay in bed, nearly asleep, I heard a soft tap. Not on the door, behind my head, inside the wall. 2 gentle knocks, like a greeting. I froze and listened, every cell in my body focused on that wall. For a moment, there was silence. And then, barely audible, a voice whispered, "Let me out." I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my keys, and ran out of the apartment barefoot. I never went back. I asked the landlord to mail me anything I left behind. He agreed too quickly, like he was used to it. He even waived the final month of rent. That was the moment I knew this wasn't the first time someone ran from that apartment, from that door. I've moved twice since then. I sleep better, mostly. But sometimes, I still wake up at 3 in the morning. Not because of a dream, because the air has gone still and cold, like something is waiting on the other side of a door that isn't there anymore.
My sister always said I was paranoid. She'd laugh when I double-checked the locks or insisted on closing the closet door before bed. But I swear to you, that house noticed me the moment I stepped inside. 3 years ago, I was going through a bad breakup and needed a fresh start. My sister had a spare room in her rental house, and she convinced me to move in. It was a 2-story Craftsman on a quiet street, surrounded by tall cedar trees that blocked most of the sunlight. The house felt older than it looked, like it had memories buried deep in the wooden beams. The first night there, I woke up choking. Not coughing, choking. like someone was pressing a hand over my mouth and nose. I sat up gasping, heart pounding. There was nothing in the room with me, no open windows. It wasn't a panic attack. I've had those before. This was physical, forceful, and the air felt wrong, thick, damp, like I was breathing through fabric. I turned on the lamp and sat there until morning. When I mentioned it to my sister over breakfast, she shrugged and said old houses sometimes had poor ventilation. But I noticed the way she didn't look me in the eye. 2 nights later, the same thing happened. I woke up again, lungs screaming for air. I pushed myself out of bed and stumbled into the hallway, breathing easier the moment I stepped outside the bedroom. The contrast was immediate, like going from underwater to the surface. My sister's door creaked open. "Did you hear it too?" she asked, voice trembling. That's when I knew she had lied before. We sat in the kitchen with the lights on, drinking water we didn't want. She told me she sometimes heard the house shift at night. Quiet groans in the walls, followed by a slow intake of air, as if the house was breathing. I didn't know how to respond. It sounded insane, but I had felt it. The air in that room had felt alive. Days passed uneventfully. I convinced myself we were just feeding each other's imagination. That ended the night we heard footsteps upstairs. It was 2 a.m. Slow, heavy, walking from one end of the hallway to the other, back and forth, over and over. The kind of footsteps that carry weight and intention, not the light scampering of animals. We tiptoed upstairs with a flashlight. The floorboards were cold. Each room door was closed, except mine, which was standing wide open. We searched everywhere. Nothing. But as we stood there, the air shifted again. It felt like the entire hallway was expanding and contracting, like a lung. My sister whispered, "Do you feel that?" I nodded, afraid to speak.
We bolted downstairs and slept in the living room that night, the TV on as a makeshift guardian. The next morning, we called the landlord. He was too calm when we told him what happened, too rehearsed. "Houses make sounds," he said, "especially that one." He offered to send someone to look at the air vents. We never saw anyone come. One evening, a week later, my sister wasn't home yet. I was alone upstairs folding laundry when I heard breathing behind me. Slow, deep, steady. It wasn't human. It was too broad, too hollow, like air being pulled through giant lungs. I turned slowly. Nothing there. But the walls, I swear they looked closer, like the room had shrunk an inch on all sides. I ran downstairs and waited outside until my sister got home. We agreed not to sleep upstairs anymore. We dragged our mattresses into the living room. It felt childish, like we were hiding from monsters under the bed. But at least the air was breathable. For a while. Then the house adapted. The first change was the moisture. The walls started sweating, condensation dripping like cold tears. We'd wipe them down, and they'd be wet again minutes later. My sister set up dehumidifiers, which filled in hours. Then the walls started making noise, a soft, rhythmic thudding, like a pulse. You couldn't hear it during the day, but when the house got quiet at night, it was unmistakable. A heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Like the house was alive and getting stronger. The final straw wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a whisper, so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. I was brushing my teeth in the downstairs bathroom when I heard a voice from the ceiling vent. A voice that sounded like the house itself speaking through the air. It whispered, "Stay." That was enough. We packed whatever we could fit in our cars and left that night. No sleep, no second thoughts. We didn't leave a note for the landlord. We didn't ask for our deposit back. We just drove. I live in an apartment now. Concrete walls, dry, stale air, nothing organic. Sometimes, though, if I'm up late, I swear I can hear breathing through the vents. Slow, heavy, patient, like the house is still looking for me, like it isn't done.
I never believed in hauntings or cursed land or any of that supernatural crap. I grew up in a farming family. You worry about weather, animals, and debt. Ghosts aren't real problems in rural Nebraska. But what happened to me last year, I can't explain it with anything else. I had just turned 24 when I got a job offer from a trucking company out west. The pay was decent, but the commute from my parents' house was brutal. So when my cousin told me about a small farmhouse for rent cheap, too cheap, he said jokingly, I jumped on it without thinking. The house sat alone at the end of a narrow gravel road, surrounded by nothing but cornfields in every direction. The nearest neighbor was a tiny speck of barn roof miles away. The place was quiet, too quiet. At night, the silence felt thick, pressing against my ears like cotton. The landlord was an older man named Ben, thin as a rake, missing a few teeth, but harmless enough. When he handed me the keys, he warned me, "Don't go into the attic. It's not safe up there." I assumed he meant structurally unsafe. Old floorboards, maybe rodents. I didn't care. I never planned to go poking around. The first week went fine. Work, sleep, repeat. I barely noticed the house, but every night I heard the same noise. A soft shuffle above my ceiling. Slow, deliberate, like someone walking in the attic. I told myself it was raccoons or squirrels, but those footsteps were too heavy, too paced, like they belonged to a person. One evening, after a 12-hour shift, I collapsed into bed and shut off the lights. I was seconds from sleep when I heard 3 loud, distinct footsteps right above my room, followed by a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the attic floor. I sat up, heart racing. Then silence. In the morning, I called Ben and told him about the noise. He didn't sound surprised.
He just repeated, "Don't go into the attic." He hung up before I could ask anything more. A few nights later, things got worse. I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not on the door, not on the walls. From under my bed.
I jumped up so fast, I nearly fell. I turned on the lamp, grabbed a wrench from my nightstand drawer, a habit from growing up on a farm, and dropped to my knees to look. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Bare wood, clean floor, no sign that anything could be there. I barely slept after that. 3 days later, I found footprints outside, in the dirt right under my bedroom window. Bare footprints, long, narrow, the toes dug deep into the mud like claws. They led toward the cornfield, then vanished between the rows. I told myself it had to be a prank, some local kids messing around, but in that area, nobody walked miles out into the fields just to scare strangers. That night, I locked every door and pushed a chair under the knob of my bedroom door, something I hadn't done since I was a child afraid of thunderstorms. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the unmistakable sound of someone walking inside the house. Slow footsteps in the hallway outside my room. They stopped right at my door. The chair pressed harder into the knob. Then the footsteps moved away, up the hallway, up the stairs, into the attic. I stood frozen until sunrise. The next day, I borrowed a ladder from work. I needed answers. I climbed up and pushed open the attic hatch. The air that rushed out felt icy, colder than anything inside the house should ever be. The attic was nearly empty. Dusty boards, cobwebs, old insulation. But there was something against the far wall. A door. A second door. Low, crooked, and old. Much older than the house itself. Its wood was dark and damp, like it had been cut from a tree still alive. There were fingernail scratches around the frame, long ones, deep ones. That door was locked too, a giant iron padlock bolting it shut. I reached for the lock, and the floor creaked behind me. Footsteps, one by one, approaching, slow, intentional. I didn't turn around. I just ran, back down the ladder, nearly falling, slamming the hatch shut behind me. I drove straight to my cousin's house and begged to crash there. He stared at me, breathing hard, before finally admitting, "That house? You should have told me." A man disappeared there years ago. I felt sick. I asked what he meant. He told me the story. The farmer who lived there before me boarded up the attic, said something made the walls whisper. His wife went missing one night. No struggle, no sign of her leaving. Gone. Just gone. People thought the farmer killed her and hid the body. They arrested him. But when I asked
how they found out. My cousin shook his head. They never found her, he said quietly. And the farmer? He swore the house had taken her. He died in prison, still saying the same thing. I wanted to believe it was old rumors, rural yidiths, but then my cousin asked, "Did you hear the breathing?" I didn't answer, because I had. Every night, slow, deep, hungry. 2 days later, I returned only to grab my things. I left furniture behind, clothes too, anything that would have forced me to stay even 1 second longer. Before I left the property for the last time, I looked up. The attic window, which I had never seen open, was cracked, and in the darkness behind the glass, I saw a shape, tall, thin, turning slowly toward me. I jumped into my truck and sped off, gravel spraying behind me. I never looked back.
I live in a small apartment now. Crowded, loud, sirens, neighbors, traffic, real sounds, human sounds. I welcome them. But sometimes, when I fall asleep too early, before the city noise is at full volume, I dream of cornfields, endless rows, and something moving between them, something barefooted, searching, patient, like it knows I owe it something.